All right, good evening, everybody. My name is LP Mainville. I'm the Athlete Development Director for the OVA. I believe I know most of you here on the call, so welcome. Thanks for making some time on this Sunday evening to connect. The goal and purpose of this call is actually to help you guys, right, people from clubs connect with each other so that you can share some of what you've been doing, some of your best practices, in order to kind of help each other navigate all of the challenges that we're facing these days with the pandemic and the situation that we're in. So it's going to be very different than other town halls that you may have been a part of. So this is not going to be OVA staff, just giving you information. It's really going to be an opportunity for you to interact with each other, to ask some questions, to help lead this conversation. We have four people that have accepted to kind of share the things that they've been doing. So we tried to get someone from each region, all of the 6 regions. Unfortunately, we were not able to get people from everywhere, but we do have 4 regions represented in 4 different clubs. So we'll introduce them to you right now, and we'll get started with the call in a minute. So we have from Smash Raiders Volleyball Club, we have the president, Tauri Caputo, also president of the Region 3. We also have Vishnu Persaud. Did I get it right, Vishnu? Yeah. Vishnu is with Phoenix Volleyball, and he's also the treasurer for Region 5. We have Shaun Illingworth from Ottawa Fusion. He's the president of the club and also Region 6 secretary. And we have Gosselin, president of Region 2 and also coach and member of the Vision Volleyball Club in North Bay. So thanks, guys, for accepting to come on the call and share. I want to start with a quick intro. I would like to go around, and you may want to add a little bit to the introduction that I did. So I'll give you 2 minutes to tell us who you are, who you represent. Please give us a brief overview of the programming that you've been running in the past 4 months. We'll have some time to dig into that a little bit more later, but just like a quick idea of what you've been doing. And at the same time, one main lesson, I guess, that you've learned over the past 4 months running what you've been running. So really, like, just 2 minutes, what you've been running, one quick lesson, and then we'll dig into it more as we go with the questions from other people on the call. So Tauri, you're the first one on my list, so your 2 minute is starting now.
Hi everyone, I'm Tauri Caputo. I've been running the Smash Club here in the Greater Hamilton area for 4 or 5 years now, and this is my 3rd term as president for Region 3, Southwestern Ontario. We've been fairly fortunate and been running quite a bit of programming, particularly in the last 6 weeks, but prior to that, after everything shut down in March, we ran 3-day-a-week strength and conditioning virtual Zoom calls for 3 months, pretty consistently with our strength and conditioning coach, and had around 30 average athletes from 5 or 6 different clubs around the area. We made it sort of known to friends of the girls that if they had somebody that wanted to join, to do so, and we did that free of charge. Into July, when the TMO regional programming and red and white and black started up, and then we sort of left that to the side. Subsequently, we started running some grass training once we got into the correct phase to allow us to do that. And then we've been very fortunate in the last month to be indoors in one gym. We've been running quite a bit of programming, trying to use as much time as possible when we can in order to do that. The biggest piece right now for me has been don't plan too far ahead and try to limit people's expectations of what a regular season would look like and feel like, and what regular training feels like. It's all new. No, there's no expectations, and we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So take what you can get today and train as well as much as you can and as well as you can right now. So we've been in quite a bit. I'm looking forward to the call and seeing what everybody else has been doing and what the questions are.
Thanks, Tauri. 1 minute 55. Right on. Like you had a timer with you. Vishnu.
Hello, I'm Vishnu. I'm with Phoenix Volleyball. We ran some beach camps over the summer outdoors. We did a lot of physical distancing, but I'll talk mostly about the indoor stuff that we've been doing lately. So about 2 weeks ago is when we started our indoor stuff. Some of it we've bought 3 grass systems that we've set up in parks, and we're looking for some permits as well for some more. But we've bought grass nets that we've been setting up outside and doing a lot of grass practices. We also have a few gyms that we've rented starting a couple weeks ago on the way up till January, hoping that we can get into our regular locations in January. But in the meantime, we've rented some temporary space up until January. Most of the schools, unfortunately, we've typically used in the past have said no. So we're looking at a lot of alternative locations like community centers, churches, anything that basically has a gym that we can set up in as a temporary measure. We're planning in September for a lot of our teams to run 1 indoor and 1 outdoor practice, but some of our teams will have 2 indoors. I think the biggest thing that we've learned is communication is the most important thing. As long as you're open and honest of what you're planning and what the season looks like, parents are really appreciative and on board. And I think that's the key to making sure we have a successful start and season.
Awesome. Thanks, Vishnu. Shaun, how have things been in Ottawa?
Crazy. Hi, I'm Shaun Illingworth. I'm the current president of the Ottawa Fusion Volleyball Club. Just a real quick intro to the club. Ottawa Fusion is a 100% volunteer-run member-focused club here in Ottawa. The Fusion name actually comes from the result of a merger or a fusing of 2 clubs that had been around for about 25 years in Ottawa, the Ottawa Kangaroos and the National Capitals. We're now in our 11th year as the Ottawa Fusion, as a unified club. And we've been lucky over the last few years to get some real nice attention from some important people. I think we were the first club level sports organization to receive the Quest for Gold Coaching Award back in 2014. So that allowed us to hire a full-time dedicated club head coach year round. And that's really been the key to the success of our club. So we typically run a full summer program, a pretty intense summer program that runs 3 full days a week for different age groups. A day of multi-sport competition, a day of beach, and a day of indoor. And then on top of that, a couple of summer camps. And so all of that obviously didn't happen. And so, we'll get into more detail about how we adapted, but I think the lesson learned from our perspective was really just to focus on your goals, not on outcomes. And so, our goals were around helping athletes develop to their fullest potential. And as long as we stayed true to that, we were using whatever technology was available to get them to that space. It wasn't about medals. It wasn't about competitions. It was about, stay true to your goals.
Excellent. Thanks, Shaun. And last but not least, Danny. I think you're muted, Danny.
All right. Yeah, I just walked in the door, so I'm hoping that I'll do this justice.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. So my name is Danny Gosselin. I'm the regional chair for the OVA. This is my 2nd term as the regional chair. I'm also the founder of Vision Volleyball Club. No, I'm not the president. I'm the technical director. I have a lot on my plate. I was a Team O Black coach. Spent my summer doing an online delivery with them, and I'm also an active member of the board for the OVA. So that's been also keeping me busy. And on top of that, we have regional meetings every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, so they're pretty often. So my summer's been pretty much dedicated towards finding out what the future will look like for the OVA, which is pretty uncertain at this time. We also managed to deliver a beach program this summer. It started a little bit late as a result of the COVID situation, but we ended strong. We had a camp, beach grass camp this week, and it had close to 100 kids in 2 sessions. So we were very happy about that. So it's been a real trying summer for everyone, I think. We have no access to any indoor facilities at this time, although the recreational center in North Bay is opening up apparently on September the 8th. So we're hoping to get our feet into that. And we're looking elsewhere also to rent a facility maybe. But North Bay is a small community with very small facilities. So it's going to be a very difficult process for us to find somewhere to run our season. But we're hoping for the best. And hopefully the minister will get lobbied enough to encourage the school boards to encourage the school boards to open up to secondary groups to use the night. So fingers crossed on that. We're hoping for the best situation there. I don't know if I'm over 2 minutes or if I'm even at a minute, but that's pretty much the gist of my life. And I'm really lucky this summer to be surrounded by some amazing people. I had a great summer working with Shaun and Tauri, and we've really worked on some projects together. Alicia's been very supportive from the staff to keep us going, and it's been a good summer of progress for the regional presidents, and I'm very happy about that. LP?
Yeah, well, Danny, you were at 2 minutes when you asked the question, but then you kept talking. So now you ended up
Sorry.
So, thanks, Danny, and thanks for your intro. So, listen, there's not a lot of us on this call, so I think one of the things I guess I'd like to do is, if you have a question, just say in the chat, just say I have a question, and then I will essentially open it up to you, so you can unmute yourself and ask your question directly. I think it will work well that way, especially given that we have a small, small call. The one thing I will say though is, in these situations, we have 4 kind of panelists. It's going to get long if everybody answers every question. So I think we can maybe direct the questions to one, and we can rotate through the different members of our panel. And if you do have something to add to the answer that you think will help people on the call, then please do. If not, maybe use a thumbs up option on your Zoom to say that, hey, you're living a similar experience or something like that, and you kind of are using a similar approach, just so that we can maybe get through more of the questions that we have. I have a bunch of them, but I would really like you guys to interact and you guys to get involved, people on the call. But if we don't have, then I will lead with my own questions to get the conversation going. Okay, so I will do that. I will start it up, and then please jump in. So many of you have talked about your quest for gyms and for gym space. I've heard a lot about it in the past week, and it seems like it was really one of the main issue and challenges that you guys are facing in clubs. I know I've heard you, very briefly, you've spoken of a couple solutions. Have you found any solutions that seem to work? And what are your plans if you don't end up being able to get any gyms? So maybe we can start this way and get the conversation going that way. So I'm going to go, Shaun, you're first.
Yeah. So anything that worked, no. But our fingers are crossed. I think like everybody, we've been reaching out to the school boards and pleading our case. We do have some schools that will start in early September. But even given that, we have no confidence that those schools will stay open. right? So the school boards that we have communicated with have told us that it's very much a wait and see. It's not a no until January. It is more of a let's see how September goes, and then we'll make a decision about October or November, or however it goes. But beyond that, Danny mentioned it. We've been reaching out to kind of our local counselors and trying to get them to encourage the schools to open their community use permits. But there's and so our plan is we're going to continue to run beach with our club teams as long as we can, and we've always done a significant amount of physical conditioning outside on a hill downtown Ottawa. So the kids will be running up and down the hill, getting their physical conditioning done. They'll be doing some beach until we see some snow on the ground, and then rationing gym time is really what we're going to do with the limited ones that we have available to us right now.
What do you mean by rationing gym time?
Yeah, so we'll go from 3 practices a week down to whatever the right number is, right? So it might be 2, it might be 1, but and we'll also, if it stays the way it is right now, we will also put a pause on our developmental program until more schools open. So that's going to be a big hit for us. The development program is a huge source of revenue for the club, but we've got to get these club athletes in the gyms wherever we can.
Yeah, for sure. What about the GTA? Vishnu, Tauri, how are things in in Toronto? We know it's obviously big density, lots of people, lots of different sports fighting for space.
So all of our gym space from last year, all of our schools have said no for September and October, but they did say they would reevaluate in October for November, and then if not, then they'll reevaluate in December for January. Only one independent school got back to us saying that will allow us in September, so we've been using that one. But we've been looking at a lot of alternative space as well, because as you know, Toronto is hard. All the Toronto Catholic has said no to permits already. TDSB is currently saying no, but they're reevaluating. So I saw in the chat that someone asked about tennis courts. We did look at a couple of tennis courts, tennis clubs, private clubs as well, to see if we can use that space. Obviously, it'd be tough without lines, but at least it's an outdoor space. And then some grass courts as well. We've looked at until obviously the weather gets too poor, because that's probably mid-October. But what we've been doing in Toronto mostly is looking at churches and community centers that are currently open, but perhaps not using their full space. So that's what I'd recommend here.
And did you get any positive responses from any of these places? Yep.
So we got 2 churches. So we have 2 churches available for September, and we have one school. We've also looked at an empty warehouse that we're considering renting, that we can put some sport court down and maybe some poles up in. So that's a possibility as well. It'll be expensive, but they still keep us going till January anyway. So we're looking for a short-term rental with 2 facilities that are interested, actually, because one of them is completely empty right now and trying to sell. So I've heard from them actually that having an empty building actually costs them more insurance-wise. So having tenants in, even if it's for 4 months, will actually save them a lot of money. So we might be able to save a lot of rent that way by negotiating with them.
Interesting. Vishnu, while you were talking here, there was a question sent to me. So in terms of like grass permits, you said you had some grass permits?
We contacted the city for grass permits. We haven't heard back, but we're waiting for that.
Because I think you mentioned earlier that you were running stuff on grass and that you had purchased kits. So
yeah, right now
I was asking about that, like where you got the kits and where you got how did you get the permits for the grass courts you already use?
So we ordered 3 kits off Amazon and 1 off Canuck Stuff. The Canuck Stuff one is probably a little bit better. The Amazon ones we could get quickly and they're a little bit cheaper and not as sturdy. But for the grass courts, we've mostly been running in backyards of some of our parents. We have a lot of private school kids that have big backyards, and we've been keeping athletes obviously to 2 or 3 to 4 athletes in a backyard basically. So that's where we've mostly been setting up right now. Hopefully we can get permits for parks, which would be fantastic. And if we can do that, that would obviously help a lot.
For sure. So you mentioned the warehouse space and then potentially getting some sports court in there. Curious to know if anybody else on our panel here has looked at that option and what it looks like for you guys.
Yeah, I've looked at it here in Ottawa. Ottawa has very little warehouse space, and I guess because of that, Ottawa has the highest cost per square foot for warehouse space in Canada. So it's not looking, that is not looking good here, but we've certainly gone down that road.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Tauri?
We're normally in 11 different schools, even though I only run 14, 15 teams. We have a lot of small one court schools, and we're in 3 private facilities. Only one of those 3 has come through. Other than that, we've been running on grass, and if we lose the indoor space, my intention is to go back to grass until such time as we can't. We've been indoors doing strength and conditioning for a month now. We are increasing that to 2 days a week, starting not this coming week, but the following week after Labor Day. And essentially we will just go virtual again, like we did in April, May, and June. If we lose all access to facilities and it gets too cold. There really isn't any warehouse space in town. Neither one of our boards is looking at anything. We may get into recreation centers earlier than anything else. I've called a dozen churches. Nobody's interested in our area, or they've already rented to somebody else. Fairly bleak. I think it's just a waiting game until October. And if the cases stay neutral and don't spike, then I think there'll be enough pressure politically and otherwise to get back into the school system. But until then, we don't see much movement here. The boards here have actually asked us to remove all of our permit requests and reapply without any September dates on them. In one case for one board, and the other board has said, don't even bother submitting your permit requests until you hear from us. So they're just playing the wait and see game.
Yeah, and I guess that's the same for you, Danny. North Bay. I mean, I know you're playing outside. You guys are going to get snow before everybody else, so potentially not able to play outside for as long as other people. How are you addressing that?
Well, it's a difficult situation depending on there's a community center, but since it's not open, we're not sure what the landscape will look like once it opens. Maybe, well, it's not, we don't have warehouses here really. There are a few empty buildings, but very expensive. Like Shaun said, it would probably be such a financial burden for the club. It's probably not even worth exploring, but we are looking that way. I'm not sure what other kinds of facilities. Hopefully, everyone's putting in ice, so we're not going to be at a rink. The situation's most precarious, so all we're doing now is just sitting and waiting to see what the educational boards will do once September comes, and if COVID spikes, whether they'll push us back or dial us back and make us wait longer, or whether they will see the situation's not dire and allow us to use the facilities. And they've accepted our permits. They just haven't they haven't said when they'll let us into schools. So we just wait.
Right. So some of you have mentioned rationing the time so that if a team normally would get 3 times a week in the gym, that you're looking at obviously where you have to give everybody a chance to get in. So maybe, take out some sessions for some teams. What about, how does that affect the number of players that you're looking at per team? Have you looked at that at all? Are you making any modifications to your roster size in order to fit into the recommendations of the protocol, and maybe to also fit with the restrictions put in place by the facilities that you're using? Any changes from that perspective, when, like, in terms of roster size for a single team?
I've gone to close to 12 on all of the teams. I think it makes for easier practicing and scrimmage-like type of stuff, as opposed to the 9s and 10s. We haven't been limited by our facility. Right now it's the limit of 14, which is going to be clarified hopefully here this coming week of people. Even though the facility I'm in is a double, we're actually limited to 1 court at the moment by the facility. And so it's a giant single court. So we don't really have a social distancing issue. We've been setting up tables along the entire perimeter, 6-foot tables, and we have 1 kid's bag on each end of each table. It also makes it real easy to clean afterwards. So the distancing piece hasn't been an issue. Masks in, masks out, temperature, all that kind of thing. But yeah, I've got almost all my teams full at this point, and 75% of the teams are 12, and then from there I have a few teams at 10. But that hasn't been part of our thought process, really.
Okay. Shaun, Danny, Vishnu, did you guys take a similar approach, or any of you using like a different approach where you're maybe keeping smaller rosters to adhere to restrictions?
We've gone to 12 on most of our teams as well, just because we've pre-signed a lot of athletes back and trying to avoid tryouts as much as possible. Most of our teams, I think, will be filled by the end of this weekend. Obviously, the younger ones, like the 12Us where we didn't have enough 11Us from last year, we'll need to run tryouts, but we're basically trying to avoid tryouts so that we don't have a lot of kids in the gym. For teams that have for players that have showed interest from other clubs, we've been running some smaller 4-person clinics basically to see if we can just evaluate them and see where they'd fit. But basically trying to keep numbers really low until we start the official practice and they can actually at least cohort together with those kids of their team.
Not really, LP. I would say more that the numbers have just been coming in. We're still starting to fill our rosters now. I think the numbers will be about the same. There'll be no change. We're hoping to sign all the players that we had last year. So, I mean, I don't think it's really affected our thought process in terms of signing athletes.
Yeah, same for us. We don't have of the current gyms that we have, there is not a triple court facility. So 2 courts is the max that we will be using at any one time. And so, 24 kids plus a couple of coaches plus 4 coaches. We will be asking parents to stay outside. And as Tauri said, we're going to repurpose the OVA screening tool that was developed for the summer and use that every time they come in and make sure that no contact, no fever, nothing like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually interested in knowing from the programs that you've ran, and obviously you've been using this protocol. And Tauri, maybe you can speak to that since you're the one mentioning it. But how has that been going? And is there anything that you've learned through applying those protocols that is going to help you, I guess, moving into more regular team training? What has been working well for you?
Temperature gun has been working really well. It's quite a bit faster than what we were doing originally. We have everybody signing a waiver once, and we're doing the verbal health screen outside ahead of time once they've already been through once, and then I'm taking temperatures of every athlete as part of the screening process as they come in. That's being done with masks on, until they get into the facility, and then they're free to take the mask off if they want. Coaches in masks the whole time. Bit of timing stuff where before we would back things, butt things right up to each other. We're leaving 10 minutes in between. Because we're only in one facility, I have all of our equipment there, so we're not even crossing equipment over from group to group. And so the cleaning the balls and the amount of time it took to do that at the beginning and waiting for them to dry for the next group, I just run 4 ball carts worth of balls for group 1, put those to the side, 4 ball carts for group 2, 4 ball carts for, and I happen to have 300 or 400 volleyballs in that location. So that's helpful to have a ton of equipment if you're lucky enough to do so. We're having the girls warm up outside. So they come early, come 15, 20 minutes early, register, get your temperature taken, go back outside, go warm up out in the field. And so that they can be really efficient once they get in, when they're touching the balls and doing that. We've got hand sanitizer inside for our 30-minute breaks, but we also ask the girls to bring their own so they don't even have to go to one place to sanitize, and just for those that forget. So it's been going quite well. We're using the bring a plastic bag or a Ziploc bag with your water bottle in it type of a thing to keep the cleanliness. Lots of questions about that. Why is this necessary? Why can't I bring my backpack? All those kinds of things, but they've got it figured out. And fewer girls are forgetting their shoes and knee pads because they have to have them on when they get there. So that's been a positive piece.
Sure. Tauri, just before you mute yourself, just so I understand, so you have whoever the coaches are, they're running the practices and stuff, but you do have some staff or yourself. Yeah, but you have people actually waiting for the next group of athletes outside, welcoming them. So you have essentially people who are solely responsible for the health screening and stuff, and they don't coach, or like how do you staff those events, those clinics?
That's been me 100% right now. I'm at every single second of every single session.
Jeez.
So I'm just lucky I've got that kind of time, and I'm on the permit, and it's so important to the club that we retain this particular gym that I've been literally in the gym every second of every group. So they come in, they see me, I do the screening, take their temperature, sign them in, send them back outside to warm up, leave them out there, make sure they're out of the way. When the other group is done, open the door for them, let them leave before I invite the other group in. So it's been all me at this point. But that way we have absolute control, and we have a record of every single kid that's come in and gone out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that speaks to the importance of having someone responsible for that, who's, making sure that these things are happening, the protocols are followed and all that stuff. So that's a lot of work for you, but yeah.
I had 5 months off, so, I'm making up for it now.
Yeah, true. Anything else that anyone else would like to add in terms of things that you do or that you've done that works really well for you in terms of keeping with the protocols and the guidelines? Yeah, Vishnu?
So we've so for all of our indoor stuff right now, at the door we bought a little handheld thermometer. So we've been temperature checking every person that walks in the door. So that I think was a big step. It kind of tells us if at least if they have a fever. I know there's also a lot of other symptoms, but at least anybody who has a fever we can send home. So far we haven't had anyone with a fever yet, so fingers crossed that doesn't happen. Like Tauri, we've been sanitizing all the balls as well every time there's a new group in the gym. Sanitizing the ball cart. We have wipes to wipe down the ball carts and balls. What else are we doing? All coaches are wearing masks. All athletes are wearing masks. All coaches.
Do they wear masks while they play?
So mostly they have been. In some cases, if it's a high intensity, we say they can take off the mask for that part. But mostly the athletes have been okay to keep them on. So we've mostly just had them keep them on for all of our training sessions so far. We might relax that a little bit once we get more into the season. But mostly we've been trying to keep them on. And coaches have been giving instruction from off court only, not entering the court and not getting within 6 feet of the athletes, and then no ball handling from the coaches as well to keep that that physical barrier.
Okay. And so you said you had no cases where you had to send someone home. Anybody else had to refuse training to some athletes? I'm interested in knowing if it happened and how it went and how you handled those situations.
Yeah, well, kinda. We did over the summer, so we're not running our indoor program yet. But it, you know, it was the athlete was fine. It was just for the wrong reasons, but it was really making a point of something. So athletes showed up without their completed waiver, and they were dropped off by the parent. They walked over. Parent left. Kid didn't have the form. Sorry, you don't have your form. You better call mom and dad to come back and get you. And wow, was that a heated conversation between the kid and the parent. But the kid was done for the day. So, but no, we didn't have any health related absences.
Well, that's good. Let's knock on wood and hope that this will continue that way. Another question occurred to me while you were talking there, Vishnu. You know, I wonder if you've had any, you know, issues with parents who maybe want more safety. Like, how has it been with the parents in terms of them demanding for, you know, to know your protocols and to make sure that things are going to be safe for their kids? And have they been okay so far with what you've put in place?
So most of our parents have been very happy with what we put in place. We did have one parent last week who asked a little bit more and had more questions about what we were doing. So especially for that training session, we required that all athletes keep the mask on. That was one of the requirements for sending a daughter to the training session. So for that session, we made it mandatory for all athletes to keep the mask on the entire time. But that was the only one that we've encountered. For the most part, most parents have been happy to get their kids out of the house, I think.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, LP, if I can just add to that just quickly, because that's a theme that I've heard a couple of times from different people. This concept of communicating and over communicating, and you know, we haven't heard a bad word from any parent yet because of like literally intense over communicating about what the situation is. Every time something changes, whether it's from the OVA or from the school board or from the club's perspective, there's at the very least an email that goes out to all the parents. But leading into this season, we just had our AGM a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And so, you know, we had the majority of our members attend that AGM virtually, and just a plug for a virtual AGM. In pre-COVID days, when we would hold our AGM in a venue, you know, we would get, you know, 20 parents maybe show up to attend the AGM. We had half the club show up to a virtual one. So it's actually one of the byproducts of COVID is that people actually will attend virtually where they might not attend in person. But at the AGM, we were explicit about the situation, you know, just completely honest about what's going on with the OVA, with the tryout, with the tryout window, with the competition calendar. Following that, with every one of our teams from last year, we held individual Zoom meetings with each of the teams, and Jay and myself met with every one of the teams and their parents and walked them through what's coming up, what are tryouts going to be like, what's the season going to be like, what our practice is going to be like, and you know, we just I think I said to the parents that, you know, we really cherish the fact that once we have a training schedule for the year, you know, if you go Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, it's Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's Monday, Wednesday, Thursday throughout the whole year. And you know, I just told them all straight up that be prepared this year for that to change. It's, you know, we are going to have to be flexible and adapt. So the over communication is really the big message.
Two little points from me. I've got a 12-step protocol that's now amended to the bottom of my email signature for every single email that goes out, COVID specific, which has been very helpful because it's on every piece of communication. You know, arrive this early, you have to be dressed, yada yada yada. What are all the steps are? There are no spectators allowed. Athletes must wear a mask into the Even with that, to your earlier point, I've had the opposite of what you were mentioning. I've had parents say, "Why is all this necessary?" And also some thinking it's a waste of time. And then secondarily, the biggest issue I've had to deal with is telling them they cannot stay and watch. And the ones that have been trying to sneak in through the back door, pretend they have to use the washroom, and then they're peeking out through the door. And I said, you have to get out of this facility. You cannot be in here. And that's been a real change for them. We're typically an open practice club, and they're used to being able to come and watch their kids participate, and they are dying to watch their kids participate. Even if it's just a skills clinic for serve receive, which is not the most exciting thing in the world, they still want to be inside and watching, and that's been a big adjustment for them.
Are you, Tauri, when you think about your younger athletes, are you making any adjustments to that? Like particularly like 12U and your younger players, or no, it's the same across the board?
Yeah, well, the rules are the same across the board in terms of no parents. We haven't been running anything 12U specific, only 13U and up. The brand new parents to the world, we've spent a lot of time talking to them in advance or outside about what it's all about, what's rep volleyball about, how much time commitment is there, what's the general costs associated, those kinds of things. But them being able to watch has only occurred in a rule of two situation where it's a private evaluation session or something of that nature, but it's been very few of those. The grass opportunities have been better for that because they can sit way back on the football field or whatever and watch them participate. But generally speaking, for the indoor stuff we've been doing the last month, there's been no parents at all. They bring them in if they need to hand in a piece of paperwork or whatever, or sign them in, and then they're done. Wait in your car, unfortunately.
Yeah. And you brought up the rule of two, Tauri. I'm glad you did, because that's a question that is going to come up, especially if you end up having a single, one coach, let's say, with a group of athletes in a gym. Have you thought about that? What have you been doing? And how are you planning on dealing with that moving forward? And if others want to contribute to that as well, please feel free to jump in.
We've had it happen a couple times with the team that I'm coaching this year. I'm by myself so far. I don't have an assistant yet. I just happen to have a parent on the team that also coaches in the club. So I've just invited them, and they're masked up and waiting on the stage or whatever. Not involved with the practice itself, but it's been very rare at this point. I think the problem will be, if we're in that situation, is which one of the parents gets to go inside this week or for this practice, flip a coin. But for the most part, it hasn't been too hard to find one to come in masked up. They're chomping on the bit to watch their kids participate.
Shaun, Vishnu, anything on rule of two?
We've always had two coaches in every gym. If there's a situation where one, then you just obviously not have to talk to athletes one-on-one. All of the instruction right now is off court anyway, so it's we're never in a situation we're talking to an athlete one-on-one anyways.
Yeah, same for us. We're 2 or 3 per team, and but it's a great point, and Tauri's solution to it is a good one. That if we do get into a situation where a coach is alone in the gym, we should probably ask him or her to have a couple of extra of those disposable masks, and maybe grab a parent that's out in the hall or sitting in their car to come in.
Yeah, we're gonna have to find some solutions, and this is what we want to hear here. We want to hear like the solutions that you have, so that we can share those best practices. And I think that one topic that's also very hot these days is athlete selection and tryout. A lot of you have mentioned that you have re-signed a lot of athletes. I'm curious to know if you've also used the athlete application process, or are planning on using it, and what tryouts will look like for you if you're able to run some. So let's maybe spend 10 minutes maybe talking about that. Volunteers, who wants to start?
I can go.
Ah.
I can go. Yeah, so as I said, we do have a couple of gyms at our disposal. So we will be using those. We have re-signed a significant number of our athletes from last year, like every year, I think we face the same challenge that a lot of clubs do, in that we just have a shortage of coaches. So we've got a long list of athletes that are looking to play, that have reached out, that have submitted to a kind of a pre-registration list that want to play, and so we're actively looking for coaches now. But we will, we'll be holding tryouts, assuming. This is all assuming that the gyms we have, we get to keep, and they're still active by the time tryouts come around. We'll do a physical conditioning assessment in a studio that we have contracted with, that will be able to take athletes in smaller groups. And so all of the necessary kind of physical measures, jumping, height, speed, agility, those kinds of things, force generation, will all be measured at the physio studio, and then we'll use the gym for a modest on-court session if we have to. We're operating under the assumption that we will not have that gym or those gyms. So we're going to get everything we can out of that on-site physical testing.
Okay, so if I hear you correctly, your tryouts, if you don't have access to that gym, will essentially be only based on that physical testing.
It'll be based on that physical testing, plus anybody who uses the application form, right? So, if they use the application form and they happen to submit some video, we'll certainly take a look at it. But, again, we're in the business of developing athletes. So, if an athlete walks in with some good physical qualities, we can teach them volleyball. We're more interested in seeing, are they athletic?
Yeah, well, for sure. Vishnu, are you going to run some tryouts? And if so, how do you manage numbers? We know the GTA is renowned for large tryouts, lots of athletes in the gym normally. How do you think this will potentially work for you guys?
So we, like Shaun, we've signed back most of our athletes, just trying to get rid of tryouts as much as possible. In some cases, we just weren't able to, because obviously kids are moving around and looking for other spots and this and that. Some of our kids have we've signed on other teams. In some cases, because of limited gym space, we've had to collapse teams. So like last year, we ran 3 14U teams, but we may only be able to run 2 15U teams, things like that, when we're combining teams into smaller number of teams. So what we've basically been doing is trying to run some clinics, either outside or in our gym, with limited athletes. So we're putting in 6 at a time, basically, and evaluating them as we go. Just again, trying to get rid of running tryouts, because normally our tryouts are 100, 150 people in the gym.
So lots of different ways of smaller groups. Awesome.
Yeah, we've never had more than 10 in a session, but mostly keeping that to 4 or 6.
Tauri, anything new? Anything other than that you're going to try in Hamilton?
We're in a fairly fortunate position. We've had almost 24 athletes reach out to us proactively over the last 6 weeks, or some of them as early as last December, looking for a spot on the team. And so we used the phase one re-sign over this weekend here and have picked up 20 or so athletes from outside of the club, and that plus the ones we've re-signed from inside of the club. I currently need one athlete, maybe two from 14U and up. All the rest of the teams are completely full, and we'll probably run a tryout for 12U, and I need a couple more 13U athletes, so I can see one small tryout / application process. But we have a fairly large development program that we run normally, and so there's quite a few of the younger athletes looking for a place. I just can't tell them what their season is going to look like, and they've never done rep before, so it's a little bit more challenging, and so I'm just holding on and waiting. Finding 12U athletes is not that difficult. So we're just in a fortunate position that we're going to start team training tomorrow, because literally all my senior teams are full, or they have 11. And if some great athlete comes by that fits on the team, then we can add them to it. But I don't intend on running any kind of formal tryout with the exception of 12U.
This I'm hearing you guys talk, and to me, I'm not part of your individual clubs, but it all sounds great in terms of, hey, you almost all have your athletes re-signed, and it's not even September yet, so you're ready to go and train. So I'm kind of curious to know if, based on your experience right now, maybe it's too early to tell, but kind of want to hear you guys on, do you see this being something you do moving forward? Is this something that you see could work on a regular year, even if you do have the ability to run tryouts? Are there advantages to doing it that way, even if in a non-COVID time?
Absolutely. I don't think there's anybody who likes tryouts. I don't think the clubs like them. I don't think the coaches like them. The athletes hate them. It's super stressful. They don't know what they're, who likes me, who doesn't, where can I go, where can I play? And this particular situation with our club anyways, we're fortunate that we've been running programming. The athletes reached out to us. We brought them into the programming. If they're a great fit and they want to play, why do we have to go through this whole process? So I'm very happy with this extended re-signing at all the ages and whatnot. But we're also in a fairly dense population area with a lot of volleyball, and finding athletes really isn't that difficult. I'm not sure that that's the same thing in part of the rural areas of the province, or areas without as much volleyball going on. But for us, this works really well for me. I know where I'm at. Even though I feel like we're behind from a seasonal planning perspective because we don't know our practice nights and gyms and costs and things, we're way ahead in terms of athlete selection. So this worked for us.
Fantastic. Okay. I'm just going to have a question. No, okay. I wanted to go from here and kind of talk about what modifications you're going to do to your programming. And we've just heard a little bit about some of you reducing the training time for certain teams. I think, Shaun, you mentioned very briefly that you were going to prioritize your rep programs over perhaps your house league and developmental programs. Are you planning on, at this point, are you planning on doing anything for developmental and grassroots? Any of you planning on still doing something for grassroots, even if you have limited gym space? Curious to hear your thoughts on how you're going to approach that, because as we know, obviously this is what eventually feeds our clubs, right? So any thoughts on running those types of programs?
Yeah, so I'll start it off because our hope is that we will be able to run developmental programs, grassroots programs, coming October. We don't typically start our house league or developmental programs until after the competitive programs are well underway. So it's usually end of October when we start those programs. The hope is that we will have the space to be able to do that. But other things that we're doing for the rep teams, we really over the summer program really focused on how we can take advantage of the technology that's available to us to help athletes attain their goals. So we made an investment in Team Builder, a platinum version of Team Builder, to be able to track athletes' workouts and give them training programs and run Zoom workouts together. So we'll keep doing that. That worked really well. Every athlete has a kind of a report card / dashboard that they go to, and they log their workouts, and the coaches can see what they're doing. So we're going to keep doing that, and that's going to free up some of the some of the in gym or in studio time. We also over the summer developed a full library of technical director-led, kind of instructional videos, about defensive systems and all different kinds of programs. So those are all now recorded, and that's a library that we have access to that we're going to continue to use. One of the other things that we did over the summer was with the athletes at home, we had them providing video reports of what they're doing. So they were out in the backyard, passing a ball against the wall, or doing different kinds of drills. And every kid has a phone. So every kid has a camera. Every kid can shoot video. And so they're uploading that to our coaches over the summer, and they were, our coaches were reviewing the video and giving feedback and correcting and offer advice and things like that. Same thing with mental sessions. We did that over the summer, and we'll continue to do that over Zoom. That worked really well. And then the last thing that we did over the summer was to keep the athletes motivated and committed. We developed weekly challenges, so the athletes would have to juggle 4 volleyballs. You see this on our social media page, athletes that have figured out not only how to juggle 4 balls, but how to juggle 4 volleyballs, which is kind of tough. But things like that will carry over from the summer program into the fall program.
Have you done it? Is there a video of you juggling 4 balls somewhere?
A very bad one, yes. For about 3 touches.
3? You didn't even make 4?
Oh, I made 4 balls, but I only touched it 3 times.
Awesome. This is actually a very interesting topic. So really curious to hear. I'd like to hear Vishnu and Tauri on that as well. So Vishnu, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, we've modified our program as well because of obviously limited space. So we unfortunately have also prioritized club teams because we want to re-sign as many athletes as we can. Obviously, grassroots is super important. Like Shaun, we typically start our grassroots programs after club tryouts, especially for those that don't make it at the younger ages. We recommend the grassroots programs. So typically they start in October. We're hoping to push them to November. A lot of our gyms said they'll reevaluate in October. And if the cases haven't spiked from opening of schools, then we're hoping to get back a lot of our gym space in November. Plus, in addition to what we already have, we'll have actually extra gym space than we normally have in many years. So we can actually probably run a lot more developmental programs starting in hopefully November. But unfortunately, those have been pushed to the side for now.
Mm-hmm. So Vishnu, if let's say you're in October or something, and then you have all of your teams practicing once a week, and then you have another gym open up, all of a sudden you have another few hours on the weekend available to you. At that point, do you start your grassroots or you give more gym time to your rep team?
So currently, we're planning for all of our teams to have 2 practices. Right now, it's 1 practice during the week, and then we have a lot of gym space on Saturdays and Sundays available. So, and Friday nights, sorry. So normally our rep teams only practice Monday through Thursday, but this year we're doing 1 Monday through Thursday and 1 Friday, Saturday. If I should say, we get more gym space, rep teams would start to go more Monday through Thursday. So we'd move them first to 2 practices during the week, which would open up the Friday and Saturday, Sunday options for grassroots, which we typically have anyways. We have a lot of grassroots programs on Sundays. We do run some through the week, but majority of them are typically on the weekends.
I was just asking to kind of understand where your priority was. So if you had, as gym space become more available, you're saying that you will make sure that all your rep teams get up to the amount of training that you want them to have. And then after that, if you have some gym space left, then you're going to consider running some grassroots.
Correct. Because we've already made a commitment to those rep programs. Whereas the grassroots, we haven't even posted any registration or anything for them. Yeah. So the commitment comes to our rep teams first, especially since they've been playing with us for many years. We want to make sure that they're happy and taken care of first.
Sure. Is that similar for you, Tauri?
Our development programs are actually run on behalf of the city of Hamilton. They do all the registration and we provide the coaching. That's 85 or 90% of our grassroots stuff. It's a recreation department program that we provide the coaching for. So they haven't started the registration process or anything like that. That's a Sunday program for the most part. In the last couple of years, we've been running some high school and senior elementary school house league type of programming. That'll be very dependent on the facility and the number of people we can put in. It's really hard to run that type of programming without having multiple courts running and filling them up with athletes. So limiting the number of athletes and that just doesn't make it viable financially or otherwise. So again, that'll be permit dependent. And right now I get 50 inquiries a day and I just send them back. I'll put you on the mailing list for when we have additional information. The challenge is that parents are looking to plan their fall and what days of the week are they doing which sports. And unfortunately, I can't give them any idea as to what that's going to look like. Right now, with the gym that we have, my intention is 1.5 hour practice a week during the week, Monday to Thursday, same concept. And then on the Fridays and Saturdays that we have the facility, I've been running skills clinics as often as possible, back to back, just to try to get them in a second time. But that would be, position specific or skill specific or whatever it is we can do. But I've only promised them until, assuming we maintain access to the gym, 1 team-based practice in person per week. We've we're going to beef up the strength and conditioning to 2 days a week in some cases for those that want to participate, and looking for some more online delivery methods and Zoom calls and things of that nature to work on mental training. But I've really been sort of holding back. We've got the teams fixed, filled up, we've got the coaches identified, and now it's just what is the programming going to look like? And we're just using a fluid model 1 week at a time, sometimes 3 days at a time. So right now I'm planning Tuesday. I've got Monday figured out and I'm planning Tuesday, and that's as far in the future as I'm willing to go.
And you just mentioned virtual and doing stuff online. Have you had conversations with your coaches about that? And if so, are they already planning stuff for online delivery? Or are you planning stuff? Do you have anyone doing that?
Not anyone in particular. Some of them are the senior coaches. Some of them are, the certified coaches that have been around for a long time. Some of the newer coaches, not so much. That's my next step. My first thing was trying to figure out, do we have athletes? Is there interest still? Are people going to come back to the sport? The answer seems to be overwhelmingly yes. As many or more people are interested in participating as ever before. I still have the issue of more athletes than I have coaches. I'm trying to deal with that situation right now. And we will, start the process of program development in the next couple of weeks now that we've got teams together.
Sure. I'm sure you're not the only one in this situation. So maybe we can go to someone else about coaches. Actually, I'm curious. At least what I've heard is that it seems like this doesn't seem to be typical to this year. That normally it's hard to find enough coaches to service all the athletes that you have. Curious to know if specifically this year, are you seeing less coaches wanting to participate because of the situation? Is it harder this year? And, what are you doing about it? Or hoping to do?
Yeah, so we're seeing less. We're certainly seeing less. And they're not, they're kind of like the schools. They're not outright no's. They're, talk to me in another week, talk to me in another month, talk to me in another 6 weeks, which doesn't help coming around tryouts, because we will not give an offer to an athlete if we cannot tell them who their head coach is. So it doesn't help us with re-signs. It doesn't help us with tryouts. That doesn't seem to be the universal perspective, but we just won't sign a kid if we can't tell them who their coach is. And I was at a training session with some former athletes that just get together and they go out and play on grass courts with their parents, and they asked us to come by and see them. And I told the parents directly, I said, I'm not going to, we're actively looking for coaches. We're beating every bush we can to get commitments, but I'm not going to lie to you and say that here you're on a team, and then turn around in a month and say, sorry, I didn't get a coach. So we're just being by the book on that if I can't tell you who the coach is, I don't have a team yet.
Yeah, we're in the same boat. We're finding more trouble this year. We have trouble every year, to be honest with you. It's always a struggle to find enough coaches for the amount of kids we have. So many of us coach 2 or 3 teams every year, which obviously makes it a tough schedule, but it's the only way to get as many athletes as we can into the gym. This year we do have some coaches that, like Shaun, they're not saying no, but they're saying not right now. So a couple of coaches said, well, I'll reevaluate in November. So some of those teams, what we've done is assign temporary coaches, and we've told the team, it's like, there'll be a temporary coach until this coach is comfortable to come back. Here's your temporary coach, who it is. And if the coach is comfortable coming back at that time, we'll replace them. However, it could be longer depending on what the situation is. So we've basically told them who the temporary coaches, and if possible, whether the head coach would come back later.
Okay. Danny, do you have any of these issues in North Bay?
No, I have more coaches than I have athletes, so no issues for me. So, gyms now, that's the big issue.
Send some down here, Danny. Send some down here.
I have more coaches than I have gyms.
Maybe Shaun, maybe you can offer to pay for, maybe you have a jet, a flight, North Bay every day.
Easy 3.5 hour drive. Come on.
Danny, actually, I wanted to ask you, we were just talking about adaptation to programming. And I know you and I have had discussion where we kind of joked about it in the past, but I think this year it's more serious than ever. Are you considering going and playing in the snow at all if things don't get better for gym space and snow comes around for you guys?
There's no consideration that's going to happen.
Okay.
We're gonna host some snow volleyball events. We're gonna run an adult snow league this year, and hopefully you and I can collaborate and run a large event like a provincial or a national championship.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Gonna
we'll
happen.
talk about that offline, but yeah, the FIVB is pretty serious about. They've been pretty serious about snow volleyball for quite a few years now. So,
I thought we were serious, and so I'm moving forward with. I have a committee, a snow volleyball committee. So when you came to me and said I want to play snow volleyball in a tournament, I said, well, LP wants this, so I'm going to make it happen. So
yeah,
we're going to have a
I'm
snow
serious too,
volleyball
and
tournament.
we have staff.
Danny, we are going to make it happen. I'll talk.
All right, I'm super pumped about it because I have a perfect facility for it. So I mean, you know, the only thing is we'll have to play in the daytime because it gets dark at about 3:30 here.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
Just
because
glow in the dark volleyballs.
Yeah.
Because I did hear about that from I can't remember, there was someone else that was mentioning it, and of course in the winter it's by dinner time it's dark outside. So how are you addressing that? Do you have lights? Like how if we want snow volleyball to actually be a thing, which it could be in Ontario because we do have quite a bit of snow.
Yeah, we have lights. I'm and we can rent lights. That's really not an issue, but I don't like it's going to be one of those things that we're going to deal with when it actually happens. So it's not hard. Like everyone in North Bay has a backyard rink, for crying out loud, and they all have lights. So you know, you buy some halogen lights, you throw them around the facility on a big post, and then you turn them on. It's you know, we have hydro at our facility, so not a real issue. So you know, I think the bigger issue would be to try to get people to buy into playing snow volleyball than it will be to have a place to actually do it. So not worried about LP. Just say when.
Hey, it comes with a built-in mask, or scarf, should I say, so we don't have to worry about transmission. We're in good shape.
Right, and you're wearing long sleeve shirts with gloves on, so no worries about the about the transmission through the ball.
You just have to figure out how to deal with all the snot, you know.
Yes, yeah. You have a snotsicle.
All right, guys. There's just one more area that I wanted to touch on because I think it's important, and I think a lot of people want to have some direction when it comes to it, and it's finances. And curious to know what you're doing with your athletes right now. When you sign them, are you collecting fees? What does that look like if you are? How are you planning to address that portion of your operations?
I'll go first. We are not collecting any fees whatsoever. And my intention is to do it month by month based on actual costs that I can project. And I'm holding back on ordering jerseys and that kind of thing at this point. But with the exception of the recreation fee through the OVA to get them to become members and be covered under insurance, which I'm hearing is going to be something like $7 or something as opposed to the $90, if that's still a thing. My intention is, okay, we have the month of September, this are the practices, this is the gym costs, and it's $40 or whatever the number is, and just keep the number as low as possible for as long as possible until we know about tournaments and where the big costs come in. But I'm even tempted to hold back on ordering jerseys or anything just in case, because there's a big cost associated with that. And if we, for some reason don't end up playing, there's $100 or $200 involved in that. So we're going with the low cost model as long as we can.
Any other models?
That seems to be the most logical thing to do, is to not charge anything right now, and then see what happens. We're all in a see what happens state. And for example, we have jerseys from last year. Why can't we recycle those? And if need be, the kids can use the jerseys for the first game or whatever, and then we can get our jerseys late. I think because we're in a lot of unknown, there's no rush to buy a bunch of stuff and spend a bunch of money for a bunch of uncertain things, right?
Yeah, so we did pretty much the same thing, although we did take a small deposit with the registration. But we've, on those Zoom meetings I was talking about earlier, we told all of the athletes and the parents that that this year's uniform package would be, dramatically reduced to the point of using what you got last year. and only filling the need for new athletes that come on board. All of our teams get a team financial budget. So, and it breaks down all of the different, cost components and where the dollars are going. So, as we start to find facilities, and if we can find a facility that ends up being more expensive, it's going to be rationed across the club. And so they'll see that get populated, but we're not going to start talking about fees or timelines for fees probably until well after tryouts are done, probably until October sometime.
Makes sense. And Vishnu?
Yeah, we haven't fully figured out what we're doing for finances yet, but kind of delaying to see what our cost will be and how many practices and where and stuff like that, because everything's kind of an unknown for us right now.
Have any of you been able to find any sort of financial assistance from funders, funding partners, or anything?
We're a for-profit club, technically. I mean, don't make money, but so it's hard to get financial assistance for stuff like that. So no.
Well, that's okay, because there isn't any assistance for not-for-profits either. We've looked at the different options, so there's nothing really available to club sports.
We're in a pretty good financial position, but we did suffer, a few, I would say, tens of thousands of dollars worth of losses, gym time that we weren't reimbursed for, and deposits and American tournaments and all of that. But we're still in okay shape. No financial assistance from elsewhere at the moment.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. I was just curious. Maybe you had found something, a pot of gold somewhere to help. But no, it makes sense what you're all doing in terms of taking it week by week, almost day by day. It seems like there's no other choice right now. I do have one question before we wrap this up, and this is actually a question I have for you. I'm looking for some ideas and suggestions. In the current situation, given everything you've shared with us in terms of your plans for this fall and this season, is there anything that we, with our athlete development staff and group at the OVA, could do for you guys and your clubs to help with anything? And let me just give you an example of kind of what I have in mind. When I hear about athletes not having coaches, for example, and you don't have enough coaches to run programs with all of the athletes that you have. We ran a Team Ontario Academy this past year, this summer, that was fairly successful with a bunch of athletes. Is offering something like that to a group of athletes that would not find a coach or a team with you be helpful, for example? That's just something that just popped into my mind as we're talking, but I'm curious to know if there's any other suggestions that you would have of things that we can bring your way to help you do your job and help service athletes and coaches.
For us, I think some of the digital resources, if that was available, videos, Shaun seems to be pretty well organized and has access to, doing that internally for his own club. That coming from the OVA level, I think would be of help, both for the athletes working from home or whatever, or those that don't make a club team. They can learn through the PSO. I think they would eat that up. Personally, I don't have the time nor the staff or the capacity to develop internal digital resources for our 100+ athletes. We're virtually all volunteers. And I can solve any problem with money. I'm just refuse to charge more money than I think is absolutely necessary, as the sport keeps getting more and more expensive. And my goal is to kind of drive it in the opposite direction. But yeah, any kind of digital online resources that the OVA could do, I think would be greatly appreciated. My opinion, anyways.
Yeah, thanks, Rory.
So one thing I actually did email the OVA about, we were looking at equipment rental. If all the stuff that you use at provincials, if it's just sitting in storage, would we be able to rent the sport court and the net systems where we can just set up in a warehouse somewhere? Would be really helpful, because then we don't need to have holes in the floor or spend money putting holes in the floor if we can find warehouse space and just set up the sport court. So if that is possible, we would love to talk about that.
For sure. Oh, absolutely can talk about that.
And nothing specific comes to mind, but one change that you did make, LP, over the summer has had a pretty significant effect on our club, which is the changing of the coaching certifications. We actually did get 5 new coaches this year, and you know, for a couple of them anyway, the removal of the hump of you know, what do I need to do to be certified to coach, you know, 16U girls, that really helped. That kind of eased their stress of joining the club. You know, they'll probably go on and get those different levels of certification, but just that soft entry into the club was a big win, and we appreciate it.
Well, good to hear, and that's what I've heard actually from many club people, and I would love, actually, if you have a minute, to send that to me in writing. I did have some conversations with people from other provinces, Volleyball Canada, about that. We, you know, myself and our coach committee at the OVA thought that this was the way to go. It was not necessarily shared across the board, but when I hear that, you know, it's good to hear, and those are the kind of things that then we can share with our counterparts in other parts of the country to kind of give them an idea of how it was received by our club. So
yeah, I'll fire you an email.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Shaun. Okay. Well, no, it's great. We'll look into things. We actually have, Alicia, maybe you can refresh my memory. I forgot when it is, but I do believe that we have a webinar or a town hall like this set up to talk about the best practices that we've learned over the course of Team Ontario Online, to share with clubs in terms of how to run virtual training and what we have available for them. I can't remember when it is. Is it next week or?
Yeah, Monday, September 14th.
Okay, so 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Okay, so on September 14th, I'll be here, and then I'll be sharing with some of our coaches some of the best practices that we've developed, and I will give you some ideas on how to run some virtual training. And yeah, and Tauri will look at what we can share. We have a bunch of sessions that are already recorded online. I just have to actually organize with our coaches to see which ones are you know, like okay to share, and because we still want them to be good presentations and interesting for people to see. But yeah, we have all that stuff, so we can definitely put something together. Okay, just one last thing, and in conclusion, just want to open it to you guys to see if there's anything else you'd like to share, any things that you've done operationally, or any other suggestions that you would have for your club colleagues for the new season.
I'll just sum up something I said earlier, that, you know, whether you're a club, whether you're on a club board or a club committee, or you're a parent, the over communicate thing is really the message. You know, the clubs should be over communicating to you about the status, and if you're a parent of the sport, you should be asking the club to over communicate to you, you know, around what's going on, because certainly over the summer, for the clubs that ran programs over the summer, you know, the situation changed, I think, 3 times over the summer. It will probably change 3 times between now and January. So make sure that your club is speaking to you, and club people, make sure you are speaking to your members.
I think from a club-to-club standpoint is don't feel scared to reach out to the other clubs in the area. particularly those that are on the executive and whatnot. I think everybody, even though there's some rivalries between local clubs, everybody has the best interest of the athletes and the sport in mind, and we have different solutions. I've been dealing with one right here while we're on the call, because I have access to a gym, and we're going to share it the best that we can with other people who need it. So don't feel scared to reach out and see if we can collaborate and help the sport get back on its feet as quickly as possible.
Vishnu, any parting word of advice?
Hello?
Oh, hello.
Oh, sorry. I lost my connection for a minute there. Did you call on me, sorry?
I did. I just did.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I figured I was next, so and then I was like, oh, my video froze.
It was very smooth. I called you, and then you were like, boop.
Perfect. So yeah, I agree with Shaun and Tauri. Communication is super important, and we've been doing a lot of it, and it helps alleviate a lot of concerns, and we get a lot of less emails because we've been sending them out and letting them know ahead of time. Club to club, I think, is very important. Toronto tends to not do that as much as we should. We really need to do a lot more of that. The clubs in Toronto tend to not talk to each other, and it hurts the athletes a lot, which is unfortunate, because I just found out a couple days ago that athletes didn't have a place to play because clubs had to reduce number of teams, and of course we've already pre-signed, so there's some athletes looking for spots now that don't have spots to play because they just found out too late that they won't be able to run a team. So clubs need to do a lot more talking, and we're guilty of it as well, but we do really need to, especially in these times, start communicating with other clubs of where athletes need spots to play.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks, Vishnu. Thanks, Tauri. Thanks, Shaun. Thanks, Danny. And yeah, it was great. Thanks for your time and for sharing stuff that you've done. Hopefully this will be helpful. This will be uploaded to our website. And Alicia, can you please give us an idea of what's coming in terms of the town hall? What's next?
Tomorrow night, we have a parent and player town hall session, and then September 14th is going to be more of like the coach eligibility policy and talking about the Team Ontario training and what you guys learned and resources moving forward and what you're working on with coach development. And then after that, we actually have dates booked right up until December. The topics are to be determined. So there's going to be a lot of updates coming based on where we are with facility rentals, what the competition season looks like. So stay tuned. We'll just update membership as we get those topics booked.
Yeah, we want to do the over communicating as well. So I think that's the word. So again, thanks for your time tonight, and I'm sure we'll talk soon. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and see you on the next town hall.
Nate.
Hey, thanks, guys.